The Galactic Council chamber floated silently in the darkness of space, orbiting the neutral world of Axis 7. Inside the massive structure, beings from across the galaxy gathered for what was supposed to be a routine trade discussion. Ambassador Rebecca Hayes stood quietly among them, her hands clasped behind her back as she listened to the proceedings. The chamber was filled with strange and wonderful creatures. The Brel delegates looked like giant insects with clicking mandibles and multiple legs. The Nexaries swam gracefully in their water-filled tanks, their translucent bodies glowing softly. The Tiven stood tall and gray-skinned, their large black eyes blinking slowly as they processed information with their logical minds. And then there were the KRYLL. Commander Thrak of the KRYLL Empire stepped forward into the center of the chamber. He was massive, standing nearly 8 feet tall with 4 powerful arms and armor that gleamed like polished bone. His voice echoed through the room as his words were translated into dozens of languages simultaneously. The KRYLL Empire has made its decision, Thrak announced, gesturing at the holographic star map that appeared above them. The colony worlds in Sector 9 now belong to us. All species have 3 days to remove your people. After that, we will cleanse the planets of any remaining life. The chamber erupted in noise. Clicks, chirps, buzzes, and synthetic voices filled the air as representatives began frantically communicating with their home worlds. Rebecca watched as panic spread through the room like wildfire. The senior Tiven representative, a diplomat named Tal, raised one long gray hand for silence. The council has calculated the odds, he said in his calm, measured tone. Military resistance would result in a 0.03% chance of success. Logic dictates immediate evacuation. We will comply with the KRYLL demands. One by one, the other species agreed. The Brel began calculating how many ships they would need. The Nexaries started planning evacuation routes. Even the proud warrior race called the Mordak reluctantly nodded their agreement. No one wanted war with the KRYLL Empire. No, Rebecca said quietly. The entire chamber fell silent. Every eye, sensor, and visual organ turned to look at the lone human standing calmly in the corner. Commander Thrak's mandibles clicked together in what might have been amusement. Did you speak, human? Yes, Rebecca said, stepping forward. Humanity rejects your terms, Commander. We will not evacuate Sector 9. Confused murmuring filled the chamber. Tal approached Rebecca with concern on his strange face. Ambassador Hayes, I believe your translation device is malfunctioning. You appear to be suggesting military resistance against impossible odds with no benefit to your species. My translator works perfectly, Rebecca replied calmly. Sector 9 includes the human colony of New Hebrides. Over 200,000 people live there. We will not abandon them to the KRYLL. But they are not all humans, a Brel delegate clicked rapidly. The majority are Tiven, Nexarii, and other species. Why would you risk your military for people who are not your own kind? Rebecca looked around the chamber slowly. Because it is our duty to protect them. It is what we do. Where I come from, the strong protect the weak. It is called being a knight. The translator devices around the chamber began buzzing and clicking strangely. Across the room, alien faces showed pure confusion. The Tiven delegates huddled together, their devices sparking as they tried to process the word. Ambassador, Tal said slowly, his voice filled with genuine puzzlement. There is no translation for this word you said. This word knight does not exist in any of our languages. Please explain what you mean. Rebecca took a deep breath. A knight is a warrior who defends those who cannot defend themselves. Someone who stands between innocent people and danger, even if it costs them their own life. Someone who protects the weak simply because it is the right thing to do. More confused silence filled the chamber. Finally, the Brel representative spoke through its clicking translator. You are describing a mercenary. A soldier who fights for payment. What is your price for this protection? There is no price, Rebecca said firmly. There is no payment. We do this because it is right. Because those people need protection, and we have the power to give it. Commander Thrak stared at her for a long moment. Then he began to laugh, a harsh screeching sound that hurt human ears. You believe in right and wrong? How primitive. How adorable. Very well, little human. You have 3 days. My fleet will come to Sector 9, and we will show you what is truly right. The right of the strong to take whatever they want from the weak. The holographic display vanished, and Commander Thrak walked out of the chamber. His guards followed him, their heavy footsteps echoing in the suddenly quiet room. The other delegates began filing out quickly, avoiding eye contact with Rebecca. No one wanted to be associated with the humans now. No one wanted to be near them when the KRYLL returned for revenge. Only Tal remained behind. He approached Rebecca slowly, his large eyes filled with confusion and something that might have been concern. "Ambassador Hayes," he said quietly, "I have searched every database we have. I have consulted every linguistic expert in the Tiven Concord. This concept you call being a knight, this idea of protecting others at certain personal cost with no benefit to yourself, it simply does not exist in galactic civilization. Warriors fight for territory. They fight for resources. They fight for survival. But they never fight for others when it means their own destruction. It is completely illogical. Perhaps it is even impossible." Rebecca looked at the Tiven diplomat, then turned to gaze out through the transparent wall at the stars beyond. "Then I suppose," she said softly, "you are about to see something that has never happened before in your galaxy. You are about to learn what it means to be human." Rebecca's shuttle descended through Earth's atmosphere 40 hours after leaving the Galactic Council. The blue and green planet grew larger in her viewport as she made an unscheduled stop before her official military briefing. She had to understand something first. Something important that she had always taken for granted. The Historical Archives building stood quiet in the London twilight. Dr. William Grant was waiting at the entrance, his grey hair messy from working late into the evening. He smiled when he saw her, though his eyes showed concern. "Ambassador," he greeted her warmly. "Your message was strange. Something about explaining humanity to aliens who do not understand us." "Exactly that," Rebecca replied as they walked inside. "William, I need your help. Where did we get this idea that strong people should protect weak people? Why do we think this way?" William's eyes lit up with understanding. He led her deep into the archives, past rows of ancient books and modern data storage, until they reached a circular room filled with holographic projectors. "Let me show you our history," he said, activating the displays. Images flickered to life around them, surrounding Rebecca with scenes from Earth's past. She saw armored warriors on horseback, their weapons gleaming in medieval sunlight. "These were knights," William explained. "In old Europe, 1,000 years ago, these warriors followed a code called chivalry. They swore oaths to protect innocent people, to defend the helpless, to serve justice. A knight was not just a soldier. He was bound by honor to risk everything for people he was sworn to protect, even if he had never met them before." The images changed. Now Rebecca saw warriors in elegant armor from ancient Japan, their faces serious and calm. "The samurai of feudal Japan," William continued. "They followed Bushido, the way of the warrior. Their code demanded duty, honor, and protection of the weak. A samurai might die defending a simple farmer he did not know, simply because it was his obligation. His duty was more important than his life." More images appeared. Rebecca saw 300 warriors standing in a narrow mountain pass, facing an army of thousands. "Ancient Sparta," William said quietly. 300 soldiers held a mountain pass called Thermopylae against a massive Persian army. They knew they would die. They knew there was no chance of survival. But they fought anyway, buying time for civilians to escape. Every single one of them died. But thousands of innocent people lived because of their sacrifice. William walked through the holographic images, and they changed with him, showing different times and places. Rebecca saw firefighters running into burning buildings while everyone else ran out. She saw soldiers throwing themselves onto explosive devices to save their friends. She saw rescue workers diving into freezing water to pull out strangers. She saw teachers shielding students with their own bodies during attacks. "Every culture on Earth developed some version of this idea," William said. "Every civilization, every people, every tribe. We all came to the same conclusion, even though we were separated by oceans and mountains and thousands of years. The idea that true strength means using your power to protect others, especially those who cannot protect themselves." Rebecca watched a video from 200 years ago. A soldier's helmet camera showed him in combat. When his friend was wounded, the soldier threw himself over the injured man, taking the enemy fire meant for his comrade. The soldier died. His friend lived. But why? Rebecca asked, her voice breaking slightly. "The council thinks it is impossible. They think I am lying or that our translators are broken. Why are we different?" William was quiet for a moment, watching the images cycle through humanity's long history of sacrifice. "Perhaps because we had to be," he finally said. "Earth's history is violent, Rebecca. Humans evolved as pack animals, as tribal creatures who lived in groups. Early humans survived because strong members helped weak members. Because parents died protecting children. Because warriors stood between their families and danger. He gestured at the displays around them. That impulse to protect others at personal cost became woven into who we are. Into our genetics, our culture, our collective memory. We did not just develop weapons and tools. We developed honor. We developed the idea that some things are worth dying for, even if you gain nothing from it. Rebecca watched another scene, this one from just 50 years ago. A mother had run into a collapsing building to save children who were not her own. She had died, but 5 children lived. It is not always logical, William said softly. That soldier I showed you could have lived if he had taken cover instead of protecting his friend. That mother could have stayed safe outside. But they did not think about it. They just acted. Because somewhere deep in our genetic memory, in our culture, in our souls, we decided that this was what it meant to be human. To be strong meant being willing to die for someone else. Even a stranger. Even someone completely different from you. Rebecca felt tears on her face. She wiped them away, but more came. The council thinks it is a fantasy. They think no species could really be like this. William looked at her seriously. Then show them the truth. Do not try to explain what a knight is with words. Words are failing because they have no reference point, no understanding. Instead, demonstrate it. Let them see humanity in action. Let them watch what we do when innocent people need protection. That is the only way they will understand. Rebecca nodded slowly. She looked around at the countless images of human sacrifice and courage spanning thousands of years. Every culture, every era, every people contributing to the same idea. We hold the line, she whispered. We always have, William replied. And we always will. New Hebrides was a beautiful world of golden fields and bright blue skies. 3 small cities dotted the surface, surrounded by dozens of farming settlements. 200,000 people called this peaceful planet home. Most of them had never seen a warship in their lives. Captain Mark Thompson stood on the bridge of the HMS Defiant, looking down at the tranquil planet through the viewport. Around his vessel, the 3rd Defense Fleet held perfect formation in space. 27 human warships waiting quietly. Mark knew what was coming. They all did. Captain, Lieutenant Rachel Foster called from her tactical station. Detecting hyperspace signatures. The KRYLL fleet is arriving. She paused, checking her readings again. Count is 73 capital ships and over 150 smaller escorts. Mark felt his stomach tighten, but his voice remained calm. Understood. Open fleet-wide communication channel. His face appeared on screens throughout all 27 ships. Thousands of crew members looked at their captain and waited. All ships, this is Captain Thompson. You know our mission. We hold this position. We protect the people on that planet below us. I will not lie to you. The odds are not good. Command has given permission for anyone who wants to transfer out. No questions asked. No shame. If you want to leave, speak now. Silence filled the communication channel. Mark waited, giving his people time to think. Then Lieutenant Foster spoke up from behind him. Sir, with respect, where exactly would we transfer to? Behind the KRYLL fleet? I do not think so, sir. Quiet laughter rippled through the channel. Then Captain Rebecca Walsh of the HMS Guardian spoke. My crew took a vote, Captain Thompson. The decision was unanimous. We stay. One by one, every ship reported in. The Valiant stayed. The Resolute stayed. The Defender stayed. Not a single person requested transfer. Not one. Mark felt pride swell in his chest. Then we hold the line. Begin evacuation operations immediately. Get every civilian off that planet. All military personnel remain at combat stations. Down on New Hebrides, Colony Coordinator Tom Baker was managing the chaos of evacuation. His computer screen showed thousands of names scrolling past. Families being loaded onto transport ships. Children clutching toys and crying. Elderly colonists taking one last look at homes they had built with their own hands. Sir, his assistant Emily called out. The defense fleet is asking about military personnel on the ground. How many need evacuation? Tell them 200, Tom replied, focused on his screen. Combat engineers, security forces, maintenance crews. I already told them, sir. They said to get our military people on the transports immediately. Tom looked up at her. Wait. The fleet is not evacuating their own people. Emily shook her head slowly, her eyes wet. No, sir. They are staying up there. Tom felt his throat tighten. He had met some of those fleet crews during shore leave last year. Young men and women, many barely 20 years old. They were choosing to face certain death so his colony could escape. So children could live. In space above, the KRYLL fleet arrived in a display of overwhelming power. 73 massive warships, each one larger than any human vessel. Commander Thrak's face appeared on every screen, his forearms spread wide. Human vessels, his voice boomed. This is your final opportunity. Withdraw now and you may live. Remain here and you will certainly die. There is no logic in your choice. No reason for this sacrifice. Captain Thompson opened a return channel. His voice was steady and clear. Commander Thrak, this is Captain Mark Thompson of Earth's 3rd Defense Fleet. We do not withdraw. We do not abandon innocent people. If you want the people on that planet, you will have to go through us first. Across the galaxy, the entire Galactic Council watched through long-range sensors. In the council chamber, Tal studied the tactical display with his logical T-Ven mind struggling to understand what he was seeing. The human ships are not withdrawing, he said aloud. They are not even positioning for a fighting retreat. They are arranging themselves directly between the KRYLL fleet and the planet. It is as if they intend to use their own ships as shields for the evacuation transports. A Brel delegate clicked nervously. Perhaps they are stalling for time. Waiting for reinforcements to arrive. Tal checked his data. Negative. The nearest human fleet is 6 days away at maximum speed. They have contacted no allied forces. They are not calling for help. They simply stand there and wait. Another delegate, a floating jellyfish-like creature, pulsed with confusion. But why? They gain nothing. The colonists are mostly not even human. This makes no sense. Back on the Defiance bridge, Mark looked at his crew. Young faces, scared but determined. Rachel at tactical. James at weapons. Patricia at communications. Michael at engineering. All of them ready to die for people they had never met. Power to forward shields, Mark ordered calmly. Arm all weapons. Today we remind the galaxy what humanity stands for. He opened one final channel to the planet's surface. Tom, we are going to buy you as much time as we can. Get those people out. Every single one of them. That is an order. Tom Baker's voice cracked over the speaker. Captain, I do not know what to say. Mark smiled, even though Tom could not see him. Nothing to say, Tom. We are just doing our job. After all, is that not what knights do? The KRYLL fleet began moving forward, weapons charging with deadly light. On the Defiant, Rachel checked her readings one last time. KRYLL ships entering firing range in 30 seconds, Captain. Mark sat down in his command chair and gripped the armrests. All ships, hold your positions. Hold the line. The first volley of KRYLL weapons fire lit up space like a newborn star. The first volley of energy weapons hit the human fleet like a hammer. Massive beams of purple light, designed to crack open planetary shields, slammed into the forward line of ships. The entire defense fleet shuddered under the impact. On the HMS Guardian, Captain Rebecca Walsh grabbed her command chair as the ship rocked violently. Alarms blared throughout the vessel. Lights flickered and died, replaced by emergency red lighting. Damage report, she shouted over the noise. Hull breach on deck 7, 8, and 9, her engineering officer called back. Atmosphere venting. Forward shields down to 40% capacity. Rebecca looked at her tactical display. Behind her ship, a steady stream of evacuation shuttles climbed up from New Hebrides, packed with civilian families. If she moved, those shuttles would be exposed to KRYLL fire. Reroute all power from engines to forward shields, she ordered. Her first officer stared at her in shock. Captain, if we take power from engines, we will not be able to retreat. We will be stuck here. Rebecca pointed at the display screen showing the evacuation shuttles behind them. Lieutenant, look at your screen. What is directly behind us? He looked and understood. Hundreds of shuttles filled with children, families, elderly colonists. All defenseless. We are not going anywhere, Rebecca said firmly. Return fire. All weapons. The Guardian stood her ground, trading shots with KRYLL warships twice her size. Her hull took hit after hit, but she did not move. She could not move. Not while those shuttles needed protection. Across the battlefield, the same scene repeated on every human ship. The HMS Valiant positioned herself between 3 KRYLL cruisers and a cluster of evacuation transports. The HMS Defender took a devastating hit to her reactor but continued firing, her crew working frantically to keep weapons online. Every human captain made the same choice. Protect the civilians. Hold the line. The HMS Lancelot was dying. Captain William Hayes knew it. His ship had taken critical damage to her engines and life support systems. Fires burned on multiple decks. Half his crew was dead or wounded. But his weapons still worked, and his mind still functioned. "Sir," his tactical officer said weakly, blood running down his face from a head wound. "KRYLL Dreadnought is targeting the main evacuation convoy. 32 transports. They are defenseless." William looked at his tactical display. The KRYLL Dreadnought was charging weapons. In seconds, it would fire, and thousands of civilians would die. His ship could not stop it. The Lancelot could barely move. But she could move enough. "All crew, this is Captain Hayes," he said into shipwide communications. His voice was calm, almost peaceful. "We are going to do one last thing. We are going to show these KRYLL what we think of them. It has been an honor serving with all of you. Tell my wife and children that I love them. Tell my family I was proud to be their father." He looked at his remaining bridge crew. Young faces staring back at him. They understood. They all nodded. "And tell the galaxy," William continued, "that we held the line." The Lancelot ignited her damaged engines at full power and accelerated directly toward the KRYLL Dreadnought. The enemy ship tried to turn, tried to evade, but it was too slow and too close. The Lancelot struck the Dreadnought center mass at full speed. The explosion was brilliant, a brief new star visible from the planet's surface. Both ships were completely destroyed. But the evacuation convoy survived. In the Galactic Council chamber, complete and total silence filled the room. Every delegate stared at the tactical displays in disbelief. Tal's logical mind was breaking down trying to understand what he was seeing. "The human vessel deliberately sacrificed itself," he said slowly, his voice showing confusion for the first time in his long life. "Not to achieve a strategic victory. Not to save itself. It destroyed itself to protect evacuation ships carrying people who were not even aboard their vessel. People who were mostly not even human. Why? Why would they do this?" No one had an answer. On the Defiant, Mark Thompson heard the news about the Lancelot. He closed his eyes for a brief moment, feeling the weight of loss. William Hayes had been his friend. They had served together for 15 years. But there was no time for grief now. Mark opened fleet-wide communications. "All ships, listen to me," he said, his voice carrying authority and strength. "Captain Hayes has shown us the way. We hold this line. We do not break. We do not run. For every civilian that escapes this planet, every sacrifice is worth it. This is who we are. This is what humanity means." From every surviving ship, the response came back like thunder. "We hold the line." Lieutenant Rachel Foster suddenly looked up from her sensor station, her eyes wide. "Captain." Multiple hyperspace signatures detected. New contacts emerging into the system. Mark's heart sank. More KRYLL reinforcements? They were already outnumbered. But Rachel was smiling. "Sir, they are broadcasting human IFF tags. It is the 5th Fleet. And the 7th Fleet. And, Captain, there are ships here from across all of human space. Everyone is coming. They are all coming here." Mark looked at his tactical display in amazement. Dozens of new contacts appeared, jumping out of hyperspace. Human warships from 100 different colonies. Not running away from the battle. Running toward it. A transmission came through from a destroyer captain. "3rd Fleet, this is Captain Jennifer Martin on the HMS Resolute. We heard you could use some help holding that line." More ships arrived. Then more. Defense forces that should have been protecting their own worlds had abandoned their posts and rushed to New Hebrides. Every captain making the same choice. Every crew volunteering for the same mission. The KRYLL fleet suddenly found itself facing not a weak defense force, but a growing armada of enemies who refused to break. The battle turned like a storm changing direction. Human ships that should have been defending their own colonies across the galaxy kept arriving. Every captain made the same impossible choice. Abandoned their assigned posts and rushed to protect strangers on New Hebrides. Commander Thrak watched his tactical display with growing horror. His ships were superior in every way. His weapons were stronger. His armor was thicker. His numbers had been greater at the start. But these humans would not stop fighting. They would not break. A damaged human frigate positioned itself to shield a wounded sister ship, taking fire meant for the other vessel. A crippled destroyer with failing power continued shooting until its reactor finally died. When human ships were hurt, they fought harder, not weaker. When protecting others, they became more dangerous than when protecting themselves. "This is impossible," Thrax's tactical officer said, his voice shaking. "They should have broken by now. Any rational species would have retreated. But they just keep coming." Thrak watched as another human cruiser deliberately rammed one of his battleships to prevent it from firing on evacuation transports. Both ships were destroyed, but the civilians escaped. "They are not fighting for territory," Thrak said quietly. "They are not fighting for resources or survival. They are fighting for an idea. For a concept I do not understand. And that makes them the most dangerous enemy I have ever faced." He made his decision. "Order full retreat. All ships withdraw immediately." His bridge crew stared at him in shock. "Commander, we still outnumber them. We can still win." "No," Thrak said firmly. "I have fought many wars. I know when an enemy is beaten. But I have never fought warriors who become stronger when dying for others. I have never seen soldiers increase their aggression when protecting strangers instead of protecting themselves. These humans are not rational. They are not predictable. We retreat now before they destroy us completely." The KRYLL fleet jumped into hyperspace and vanished, leaving the humans victorious. 3 days later, Rebecca Hayes stood before the Galactic Council once again. The chamber was packed with delegates from every species. Everyone wanted to hear what the human would say. Rebecca looked tired. She had not slept much since the battle. But her voice was strong and clear. "You asked me to explain the word night," she began. "I tried to use words, but words failed. Now you have seen the reality. 73 human ships were destroyed defending New Hebrides. Over 12,000 of our people died in that battle." She paused, looking around the chamber at hundreds of alien faces. "We lost the Lancelot when Captain William Hayes rammed a KRYLL dreadnought to save civilians he never met. We lost the Guardian when Captain Rebecca Walsh refused to retreat while evacuation shuttles were behind her. We lost the Valiant, the Defender, the Courage, and so many others. 12,000 warriors died." Her voice grew softer but more intense. "But every single civilian was evacuated. 200,000 people are alive right now because 12,000 humans chose to stand between them and death. That is what a night is. That is what knighthood means. Not words. Actions." Tal stood slowly from his seat. The tall grey Tiven walked to the center of the chamber. "Ambassador Hayes, my government has completed detailed analysis of the battle," he said. "The conclusion is deeply illogical, yet undeniable. Your species fought with greater intensity and took greater risks when protecting others than any species in recorded history fights when protecting itself. You have somehow weaponized compassion. You have turned empathy into a military doctrine. It should not work, yet it does." He stopped directly in front of Rebecca. "The word knight now has context for us. A knight is a warrior who serves something greater than themselves. On behalf of the Tiven Concord, I formally request a defensive alliance with humanity. Not because you are militarily strong, though you are. But because you are knights. And we need knights in our part of the galaxy." One by one, other species stood. The Nexri rose from their water tanks. The Brel clicked their agreement. The Mordak warriors, who had fought alongside humans in the final hours of battle, nodded with respect. Even former neutral species requested the same thing. Protection. Alliance. Membership in what they were already calling the Knights Compact. Rebecca felt overwhelmed by the response. She had expected gratitude. She had not expected this. "We accept your requests," she said carefully, "but we have one condition. One requirement that cannot be negotiated. We will teach you what we know. We will show you what it means to be a knight. But then you must promise to do the same for others. You must stand for those who cannot stand for themselves. You must hold the line even when it costs you everything. Can you agree to this?" A young Brel delegate raised one claw hesitantly. "Ambassador, my species has never done this before. We have always calculated profit and loss, cost and benefit. How do we learn to care more for strangers than for ourselves?" Rebecca smiled, though tears were in her eyes. "Start small. Help someone who cannot help you in return. Stand up for someone weaker than you. Make one choice where you sacrifice something small for another person's benefit. Then do it again tomorrow. And again the next day. Eventually, it stops being a choice. It becomes who you are." A Nexri representative pulsed with concern. "And if we cannot learn? If we try but fail?" Then at least you will understand why we do it, Rebecca replied. And you will know that as long as humanity exists, there will always be someone standing between innocent people and harm. That is our promise to the galaxy. That is our oath. We are knights. In the weeks that followed, the concept spread across civilized space. Species that had never imagined such ideas began trying to understand them. Some struggled. Some embraced the challenge. Others simply marveled that it was possible. On Earth, at the memorial service for the 12,000 fallen warriors, Tom Baker stood before an enormous crowd. He represented all the people of New Hebrides, the 200,000 souls who lived because others had died. His voice cracked with emotion as he spoke. You did not know most of us. Many of you had never visited our world. But you died for us anyway. You stood between us and destruction, and you never hesitated. You held the line. He wiped tears from his face. There is a word for people like you. In 100 alien languages now, they are trying to translate it into their own terms. But we know the word. We have always known it. You were knights. True knights. And we will never, ever forget what you did for us. High above Earth, a new warship took its place among the defense fleet. On her pristine hull, freshly painted in bright letters, was her name. HMS Lancelot II. Captain Mark Thompson stood on her bridge, promoted after the battle. He looked at a memorial plaque listing every crew member who had died on the original Lancelot. His new first officer stood beside him, a young woman named Sarah, promoted from the enlisted ranks for bravery during the battle. Do you think it will happen again, Captain? Another stand like New Hebrides? Mark looked out at the stars where dozens of species now looked to humanity not as conquerors or overlords, but as protectors and teachers. Probably, he said quietly. The galaxy is a dangerous place. And when it does happen, we will do what we have always done. We will hold the line. Because that is what knights do. That is what we have always done. And that is what we will always do. The Lancelot II powered up her engines and jumped into hyperspace, carrying humanity's ancient promise to the stars. A promise that the weak would never stand alone. That the strong would always protect those who could not protect themselves. That somewhere in the endless dark of space, there would always be a knight standing between the innocent and harm. It was a promise as old as human civilization itself. A promise written in the blood of countless warriors across thousands of years of history. Now that promise would echo across the entire galaxy, teaching other species what humanity had always known. Some things are worth dying for. Some people are worth protecting. And true strength is not measured by what you can take, but by what you are willing to give. The age of knights had come to the stars.